Yeah, Jordan Peterson said that no matter how bad your marriage is, you should stay married for the sake of the kids. Essentially advocating for the nuclear family. Is that?
I agree,
is that
100%.
Okay. So even as miserable as you are, you're fighting, you're not having sex with you're not meant to be. At what point do you say, we tried, enough's enough?
What is your...
And at what age of the kids? Okay, at age...
Wait, ask him. Do you think no matter what, you should stay married?
I think that if you, again, one of the reasons why I vetted myself before I vetted my wife was because of exactly that. Can I be faithful to this person? Because if I can't, then I should not be reproducing and starting a family and building this huge, world or my frame around all of this if that one little point, if that one fundamental point can't be maintained. So yes, sex is the glue that holds relationships together. Sex is the glue that holds marriages together. And if that falls apart, I mean, you go look at the statistics for sexless marriages in the United States right now. It's like something like at least 20%. And a sexless marriage, by the way, is like 10 times a year. Right, like once a month, or and then skip 2 months. I think that's what the.
But you're saying you should stay married even if you're in a sexless relationship.
I think that once you're already in that, I think it's very important to, as far as raising the children, if you want to build strong families. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me on that because they'll say, well, I'm not getting what I need out of the relationship, and it's usually the woman that is saying that. It's not so much the man. The men will put up and tolerate way more than women will when it comes to like a bad marriage because they have more to lose. Women are more incentivized, financially incentivized to file for divorce. This is one of the reasons why 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Then you get like social narratives like what we call divorce porn, which is like eat, pray, love, right? Or Stella got her groove back, or just divorce him, girl. He's not the one for you. He was never your soulmate. You need to go run off to Jamaica and have a good time and find your soulmate there after you divorce him.
It's a pretty good movie, but that's about it.
It's divorce porn. It's a fantasy for women who get to the point where they settled on a guy who was not the one, was not their soulmate. The one that got away was the guy in their college days, and they get you want to know why they call it the 7-year itch? It's because it's usually right around 7 years that women have that. They decide, is he the best that I can do? And more, certainly since the 70s, women, the answer to that is no. And to the point where we can go build, very, profitable franchises and romance novels and narratives. Go look at anything like Netflix is chock full of those narratives.
Or 50 Shades of Grey, when that was like the biggest thing on the planet.
50 Shades of Grey, by the way. Remember, 50 Shades of Grey was self-published. It was not like
with
promoted
a few hundred
out there.
errors in the book.
Yes, and it sold 65 million copies in the first year that it was out.
What do you mean, few errors in the book?
It was self-published. The guy had like who's, loose, like spelling errors.
It was basically fan fiction, but it was just rewritten by E.L. something, or I can't remember her last name.
50-some-year-old, was she late 40? I don't know how old she was, but she was an old.
Hit on a very popular narrative because it's that
fantasy.
It's the fantasy of. It's a fantasy with a lot of commonalities in it as well. But you have to look at the popularity of that. I mean, I remember we talk about church. I remember church women going, "Have you read 50 Shades of Grey? I can't wait till the movie comes out." And it was all good in the hood to be reading this.
The movie sucked, but the soundtrack was good.
And you know what pastors of the era did? You know what religious guys of the era did? They said, "Oh, it's a failure of men." It's a failure of men that we've allowed this to happen with women, or we can't measure up to that. And so we're ready to self-flagellate and blame ourselves for those for the impulses. Let's just say.
So let me ask a question just from you. I'm going to ask a question. Do you think the more intel you get, the more it's kind of like, well, you got to do this and you got to do, this guy said this and that guy, this guy said, but this guy said this, but that guy said this, but this guy said this, where you kind of like
data overload.
Yeah, data overload to the point where you can't make a decision. Do you think that kind of hurts a little bit?
I can see for the type of person that gets in your head and second guesses everything, why that would hurt. But I'm the type of person that's going to remember the 2 or 3 most powerful things that someone says. The 2 or 3, and I say, all right, cool, this is what I'm taking from this, because not everyone's going to remember every single part of this interview.
No, that's not what I'm asking. Okay. No, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, I think you understand what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, it's kind of like you almost read, like if I knew at 21 years old how hard it was going to be to be an entrepreneur, and somebody would have told me, I don't know if I would have gone. If somebody would have told me flat out, I would have been like, if they would have sat there and said, let me tell you, here's what's going to be, 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 here's what's going to be. Like, it was more, listen, if you do this, here's what your life could look like. This is the dream. This is the dream life that could look like. But guess what? The chances of you living this dream life is 1%. If that scares the crap out of you, don't do it. If you're all in and your dreams matter, go for it. Go light it up, right? But the choice and the onus is on who? On you and I to do that. Marriage. I had to get to this place to get married, just so you know. I'll tell you where I had to get to. I had to get to, divorce was a challenge because my parents got a divorce. And as a kid, I always, like as a kid, I think about when my dad would walk up the stairs in Iran and he would come to the 4th floor. The happiest day of my moment of my day was 5 minutes when I would see his head go like this with the steps because our door was glass, and I would see his head go up like this. I would run up to him, 5 minutes wrestle, I'd go to sleep. I was good. I was at peace, right? When they got a divorce, that head coming up the steps disappeared in my life. That's it. Believe it or not, that's all I remember. I love that moment with my mom and dad. They got a divorce, right? And they got divorced twice in 20 years, by the way, my parents. So I sat there and I said, well, and both of them, neither one of them were supportive of the other. It's kind of like, well, you know, marriage is not this, and let me tell you, women is men is all this stuff, right? I should have done this, and I should have done this, and I should have done this, and this was this girl, and there was this guy, and what if this? Everybody, you don't understand. When I was younger, we always say, when I was younger, I was so attractive, I was so this. Okay, great, fantastic. So there's some regrets we're all going to have, no matter what the decision we make, right? Okay. And then later on, I got to a point where I said, all right, so let's just face it. There's a possibility that could get a divorce. But guess what? Parents did the right thing getting a divorce. My parents did the right thing getting a divorce, and you turned out okay. And so did your sister turn out okay. So this whole thing that it's going to ruin the kids, it does. Absolutely, it does. Emotionally, fear, all this anxiety, 1,000,000%. By yourself, dad's not there. I can't come. I can't talk to somebody. The phases you go through as a kid being bullied, certain you can't talk to your mom the same way you talk to your dad. The same way you can't talk to your dad the way you talk to your mom about certain things, right? So when that disappears, it's going to mess with you a little bit. But there's books, there's therapy, there's church, there's a lot of different ways you can rehash that and heal yourself, just like you have, just like I've had, just like many of us have had to do, right? Then it got to a point where I said, the one simple question, all right, so what's the worst case scenario? What's going to happen? Okay, let's look at both ways. What's the worst thing that's going to happen that if you choose not to get married? You're 63 years old, sitting there saying, shh. One of your friend's son is graduating from college and you're there and all you're thinking about is while you're clapping for this kid, you're thinking about when your friend had that kid and he met the girl and you were there and that kid's graduating college and now he's a doctor and the emotional moment the father experienced with the son or the daughter, you're saying, I want that. You know? Or you're by yourself and you have all these girlfriends that you're with, but there's nobody that you have depth of 30 years to share memories with. You're like, man, that'd be kind of cool to have that. Best friendships, when I see you and Keith together, it's freaking awesome. Well, when we went to dinner the other day, who spoke the less at the dinner the other day? I didn't speak at all. Yeah, for 3 hours, I just listened to the stories. It was freaking amazing seeing the connection that you guys have. That's like a marriage, except it's a friendship, but it's a marriage, right? Some friends didn't make it. Some are not with us. Some are not here with us. And that's just the reality of it. But the worst case scenario on the other side is if it doesn't work out, it's a divorce. If it's a divorce, you can take everything away from me. Not true. There's great legal teams out there that you can set things up front to manage expectations up front. There's something called nuptial agreement. So the financial side, okay, that's out the window. Arrangements, what about this? No, you're going to be fine with that as well because everything can be on paper up front, okay? Those are the things that takes it out because I'm from the school of thought of where I'm at today. Is I don't think, you know, a lot of people are like, listen, I'm at that age, I got to get married because everyone's getting married. That's not true. Who cares if everyone's getting married? Yeah, everyone's having kids. Who cares if everyone's having kids? That's not a reason
to get married.
That's not a reason to get married at all.
For either sex.
Absolutely. I've met people that are not married and they're very happy. They're very, very happy and content. But I've met more people that are not married and they're miserable. Okay, It's just everything becomes, a guy put a comment here and I said, fantastic comment that you just put up. It's odds. Everything is about odds. Everything in life is about odds. There's no 100% bet in an investment. It just doesn't exist.
Well, I think a lot of people believe that they're going to just stumble into a perfect turnkey relationship. And you have to remember that like a relationship, a good marriage, or even a good friendship is something that you develop over time. It's like building a project together. It is not just about like, oh, look, I found this, you know, my brand new car and I'm going to go drive my brand new car. It's something that you have to build upon. It's almost like an art project, you know. It's like you collaborate. I play in a band, right? We make music together. All four of us make music together, and it's not just about one particular guy. It's about all of us, you know, coming together, collaborating, putting something together. If you could look at it in those in that perspective, then yeah, it becomes something that's, I think. Yeah, I know Dr. Peterson would say it's like more meaningful, but I would say it's certainly more substantial. It's more impactful, and it produces something greater than the sum of the parts. So I definitely believe that. One of the reasons why I was saying that, you know, I think that staying together for the sake of the kids, a lot of guys will end up doing that. You also have to remember that divorce was at 50% of marriages end in divorce, as it is right now, and again. Then we have to look at what's the societal impact of divorce? What's the societal impact of single mothers? What is the societal impact of women who electively have kids? Was it 42% of children are born out of wedlock in the United States today?
Say that number again.
42% of children born in the United States are born out of wedlock today. So
that's terrible.
Yes, either electively or they were together and then they split up afterwards. And that's just across that's non-demographics. It's just like across the board. So what does that do to a society? Should we stay together for the kids? The other thing comes down to and this is a little more ephemeral of a thought here, is like, what is more important to you, your commitment or your commitment to the ideal of commitment? Meaning, like, I keep my commitments. That's my commitment to an ideal. So it doesn't matter how bad this situation gets. I stuck it out because when I commit to something. Or is your commitment to yourself saying, this isn't working for me. I'm my own mental point of origin. I am the primary in this, and this commitment was a bad deal, and now I need to get out of it because I can't live like this anymore. Is your commitment is it more important to be committed to something, or is it more important to be committed to yourself? And that's where guys get when they get into that situation, when they thought it was a great deal when they got married and they find out that it's a raw deal afterwards. And then they also have to take into account the opportunities and the things that they could have participated in had they not make that commitment in the first place. That's why I said, when you're talking about, well, how should I vet my wife? Understand what the opportunity costs are in there. Most guys never have even occasion to even think about that. They can't believe that they're having sex with the girl in the first place. Like, oh, well, she must be the one, right? And they're willing to go forward from that perspective and never get to the point where they're actually thinking about standards or vetting or anything else that goes along with that, because either they're too low value or they're too high value, and they don't on their way to their high valueness, to being, an entrepreneur making their first million or whatever. They're not thinking about those questions. And so they get into a similar state of like trouble as a result of that. So when I say, I think that divorce, women will say this all the time, divorce is off the table. You think you just said it a second ago. There's this idea that divorce should never be a consideration. But I'll say certainly in the 21st century, divorce is always on the table. It is always something that is available to women. It is always something that's going to say, is he not the one? Is he not the one? Is he the best I can do? And if that answer is no, there's always that option for her. For men, it's cheaper to keep her most of the time. It's like cheaper to keep her because they don't want to go through all of the rigmarole involved with separating and getting out of that. So those are things that I think every guy, when they're saying, oh, I think I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to go forward, those are questions that you have to ask yourself and ask them from an educated perspective.
So listen, for the listener that's listening to this, here's one thing I do want to say before we wrap up, is many times I see guys and gals who hear a message and they immediately make an emotional decision. So meaning they call their husband and say, you know what, we're done. Call their wife and say, here's a call, let's get married. Listen, this guys, this is just a conversation that we could have gone 5 more hours. This isn't a conversation for you to all of a sudden make a life-changing decision to go get divorced, get married, or get somebody knocked up. Not at all. This is some extreme ton of processing going on that we spoke openly, and everybody gave different scenarios. You got a guy here that's been married for 25 years in July, whose daughter turned 23. And he's given his perspective. I'm married for 12 years with 4 kids, and I'm a different story. And then you got a guy that's a single 0.13%, 1 in 1,000 type of guy who's 39 or 40 years old, and he's single, and he's thinking about whether he should get married or not. Everybody has a different life. Everybody have a different situation they're dealing with. No two stories are the same. You just got to make sure when you're making bigger decisions in life, you don't jump to conclusion emotionally. Just kind of take your time a little bit more before you get too crazy. Be rational.
Reason before emotion.
Yeah. Reason is the way to go.
Reels before feels.
Yeah, no
not
question
feels
about it.
before
This
reels.
seems to be a common theme, by the way.
This is just, but this is
Yes.
this is a very aligned. What do you call it? Language with me. I was talking to a guy the other day. He says, how are things? Good. I said, tell me about your family. How many kids you guys got? We got one kid. Are you guys trying for two? We've been trying for 5 years. And you could tell he felt the pain, right?
That's an emotional thing right there.
And I said, listen, bro, there's certain things I have no control of. I rely on a man upstairs. I try to do whatever I can to lead what I can control. The stuff I cannot control, I'm not going to do it. I can't read her mind. I can't read future. I can't do any of that stuff. The more you try to do everything right, you're going to break shit. So some things got to be left to the man upstairs. Some things you got to do, and the rest see how things turn out.
Would you say that God is the third person in your marriage?
In ours, absolutely. I told a story like 12 podcasts ago. I'm dating a girl. Her and I love each other. We enjoy each other's company. I get to a point that I want to get married. I said, listen, I don't know if I know what it is to be married. I think we need to go find a church. I'm an atheist at the time. I'm telling you right now, I'm an atheist at the time. I don't believe in God. My life has never given me a single example to believe in God. It's given me 1,000 examples to not believe that there's a God. So I don't want to go, through this mess. And I told her, I said, I want us to go to church. She says, what are you talking about? I'm not going to church. Are you becoming religious? I said, I'm the last guy who you would call religious. But if we want to get married, I do want to get married. If you want to get married, I want to get married. I think we got to figure out a way to follow a manual. Let's pick a manual. So are we going to pick the Scientology manual? Are we going to pick the Christianity manual? Are we going to pick the Judaism? Are we going to pick the LDS,
What's
the
the
Jehovah?
constitution of your
pick
relationship?
the manual,
Yeah.
right? Let's pick a manual and go find the best manual that we agree on. We went to church one time, and I came out. I said, listen, why don't we try to go 1 month without sex? She said, what are you talking about? Let's go 1 month without sex. And it was the most awkward month. And the reason why I said let's go 1 month without sex is just to see what do we talk about outside of sex. What commonalities do we talk about outside of sex? I got to tell you, it was confusing for both of us. Guess what happened a month later? Relationship ended. You know what's crazy? She's happily married, got a couple kids. I'm happily married. I got 4 kids. But I needed the man upstairs because I by myself, sometimes you need that person to be in your life. When we sit there and we pray with our kids in certain situations that we have no concern. Daddy, what do I do? I said, buddy, your daddy doesn't have all the answers. There's certain things that we got to pray about. And those things your mommy and daddy cannot help you out with. So